The stars were dying. Elder Solon pressed his thin, blue-tinted hands against the crystal viewing wall of the Valerian High Command. Below him, the capital city of Valaris Prime stretched out in peaceful spirals of white stone and floating gardens. But peace was an illusion now. 3 of their 12 worlds had already gone silent. The Korthak had come without warning. One day the mining world of Tellan was sending regular reports about crystal harvests. The next day there was nothing but dead space where a planet used to be. Not destroyed, consumed, eaten down to the core until only empty void remained. Elder, the defense fleet reports another retreat, said Commander Yellen, his mental voice trembling with fear that leaked through their telepathic link. The Korthak ships just absorbed our plasma fire. Our weapons did nothing. Solon closed his ancient eyes. The Valari had built their civilization on harmony and understanding. For 3,000 years they had known only peace. Their weapons were designed to stun, to disable, to preserve life even in conflict. They had never needed anything else. Until now, the Korthak were different from anything the galaxy had seen. They moved like a living storm across space, their biomechanical ships growing larger with each world they devoured. They communicated through screeching signals that drove most species mad. They showed no interest in negotiation, trade, or coexistence. They simply consumed everything. How many refugees from Qatar made it to the evacuation ships? Solon asked. 40,000, Yellen replied through their mind link. Out of 8 million. The numbers hit Solon like physical blows. Qatar had been their agricultural world, home to vast flower fields that fed half the Commonwealth. Now it was gone, and 40,000 survivors carried the memory of watching their world die. Solon turned from the window and walked to the central communication chamber. The room hummed with crystal resonators that could send messages across the galaxy. Normally, they used this system to share poetry and philosophical discussions with other peaceful species. Today, he would use it to beg. Open all channels, Solon commanded. Emergency broadcast to all known civilizations. The crystals flared to life, casting rainbow patterns across the chamber walls. Every member of the High Command felt the power building through their mental links. They were about to scream their desperation into the void. This is Elder Solon of the Valerian Commonwealth, he began, his mental voice carrying through the crystal network into space. We are under attack by an enemy we cannot fight. The Korthak swarm is destroying our worlds, consuming our people. We have no weapons that can stop them. He paused, feeling the weight of what he was about to say. The Valari had always been proud of their peaceful nature. They had looked down on the warrior species as primitive and violent. Now he was about to beg those same warriors for help. We call upon any species capable of warfare to aid us. We offer our knowledge, our resources, our friendship to any who can stand against this threat. Please, we are dying. The message burst outward from Valaris Prime, carried by quantum communication arrays to every corner of known space. It reached the trading posts of the Zentari merchants. It touched the crystal cities of the Hive Singers. It traveled to species the Valari had never contacted, worlds they had never seen, and it reached the outer colonies of a species the Valari had heard whispers about but never encountered. The humans. Captain Mira, Han was checking supply manifests on the bridge of the EDS Iron Will when the message arrived. The ship was a standard Earth Defense Corps frigate, patrolling the outer rim of human space. These patrols were usually boring. Humanity had few neighbors out here, and most alien species avoided human territory. There were rumors about why. Captain, incoming priority transmission, called Communications Officer Park. It's not human origin. Mira looked up from her data pad. First contact situations required careful handling. Put it through. The bridge speakers crackled, and then a voice unlike anything they had heard before filled the air. It was musical, almost singing, but underneath the beauty was raw terror. This is Elder Solon of the Valerian Commonwealth. We are under attack by an enemy we cannot fight. The crew listened in silence as the alien leader described the destruction of his worlds. When the message ended, the bridge remained quiet for a long moment. "Ma'am," said Lieutenant Jinwoo at the sensor station, "I'm detecting quantum signatures from the transmission. This came from the Vega sector, about 40 light-years from here." "Any information on these Valari?" Mira asked. Science Officer Han consulted his database. "Limited contact through traders. They're listed as pacifist telepaths, garden world dwellers. Never been involved in any conflicts. And the Korthak? No records at all, ma'am. Mira stood and walked to the main view screen, which showed the empty space around their position. Somewhere out there, an entire civilization was dying while begging for help, and that help had reached human space. "Send the transmission to Fleet Command immediately," she ordered. "Priority Alpha." "Already done, Captain," Park replied. "And ma'am?" "We're getting reports from other ships in the sector." Everyone received the message. Within hours, the message had reached Earth itself. Admiral Chen of the Defense Corps read it 3 times before calling an emergency session of the Military Council. The room filled with humanity's top military leaders, their faces grim as they discussed this first contact scenario. "What do we know about their location?" asked General Kim. "Vega sector, sir. 12 worlds under threat from an unknown hostile species. The Volari appear to be completely unprepared for warfare." "Garden worlders," muttered Admiral Yoon. "No wonder they can't fight." The term garden world had specific meaning to humans. It described planets with perfect climates. No natural disasters, no dangerous predators. Species from such worlds were typically peaceful, advanced in arts and philosophy, but weak in anything resembling combat. Earth was the opposite. A Class 12 death world where everything from the weather to the wildlife tried to kill anything that lived there. Humans were the product of millions of years of surviving on a planet that hated them. "Recommendations?" asked Admiral Chen. The room was quiet for a moment. Then General Park spoke up. "Sir, if we're going to make first contact with the galactic community, this might be our chance. These Volari are desperate enough to accept help from anyone, including Deathworlders, especially Deathworlders, sir." Admiral Chen nodded slowly. Earth had been preparing for contact with other species for decades. They had always assumed it would be peaceful trading missions or scientific exchanges. They had not expected their introduction to galactic civilization would be through warfare. "Prepare battle group. 7 for immediate deployment," Chen ordered. "Full military response. If these Korthak want to consume peaceful worlds, they're about to learn what happens when they threaten a species under human protection." Within 6 hours, the largest human fleet ever assembled was preparing to depart for alien space. The Volari had called for help. Earth's Deathworlders would answer. The Earth Defense Corps moved with a speed that shocked even their own planners. Admiral Hyun Park stood on the bridge of the flagship EDS Retribution and watched the final preparations through the massive viewports. Around him, 37 warships hung in space like sleeping predators. It had been 72 hours since the Valerian message reached Earth. In that time, humanity had assembled the largest battle fleet in their history. Ships from across human space had answered the call. Marines, pilots, engineers, and scientists all volunteered for what might be a one-way mission to alien space. Final headcount. "Admiral," reported his aide, Commander Yuna Lim. 42,000 personnel across all ships. Medical teams, combat engineers, and 3 full Marine divisions. Park nodded. "And our new equipment?" "All experimental weapons are loaded and tested, sir. The science teams are eager to field test everything." That was an understatement. Earth's military had been developing weapons for decades without any real enemy to use them against. Human conflicts had ended generations ago, but human engineers never stopped creating better ways to kill things. It was in their nature. "Signal the fleet," Park ordered. "We jump in 30 minutes. The message went out across all ships. In Marine barracks, soldiers checked their equipment one final time. In fighter bays, pilots ran pre-flight checks on experimental craft. In the medical sections, doctors prepared for casualties they hoped would never come. Major Subin Choi gathered her drop troopers in the main briefing room of the assault ship EDS Hammer. These were Earth's elite soldiers, trained to fight in any environment. They had trained in space, underwater, in toxic atmospheres, and in gravity fields that would crush normal humans. "Listen up," Subin called to her troops. "We're going to meet aliens for the first time. These Volari are peaceful telepaths from garden worlds. They've never seen real warfare." She activated a holographic display showing the intelligence they had gathered. "The enemy is called the Korthak Swarm, biomechanical ships, hive mind species. They consume entire planets." Sergeant Nayano raised her hand. "Ma'am, what kind of resistance should we expect?" "Unknown, but they've destroyed 3 worlds in 2 weeks. These things are not playing games." The room was quiet. Earth soldiers were used to fighting simulations and training scenarios. This would be their first real war in over a century. "Remember your training," Subin continued. "We come from the hardest world in known space. We evolved to survive everything our planet could throw at us. Whatever these Korthak are, they've never faced anything like us. Dr. Jinwoo Nam worked frantically in his laboratory aboard the science vessel EDS Darwin. As the fleet's lead xenobiologist, he was trying to understand their enemy based on limited information from Valerian transmissions. The biomechanical nature suggests they adapt quickly, he muttered to his assistant, Dr. Yoon Ha-yoon. But adaptation takes time. Fast adaptation usually means weakness to sudden changes. What kind of changes? Yuna asked. Environmental shock, rapid temperature shifts, chemical exposure, things that garden world species never had to deal with. Jinwoo pulled up Earth's biological history on his screen. Millions of years of ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and mass extinctions. Humanity had survived them all. We need to prepare for biological warfare, he said. If these Korthak are truly biomechanical, they might be vulnerable to the same things that shaped us. The fleet jumped to hyperspace with a flash of twisted light. 37 ships carrying humanity's finest warriors disappeared from Earth space and began the journey to a war zone 40 light-years away. They arrived at the edge of Valerian space exactly 18 hours later, sensors detecting multiple energy signatures, reported Lieutenant Taehyun Bae from the Retribution Sensor Station. Large ships. Biological components confirmed. Admiral Park studied the tactical display. Red dots showed Korthak ships scattered across the system. Blue dots marked what remained of the Valerian defense fleet. There were far more red dots than blue ones, sir. Incoming transmission from the Valerian command ship, called Communications Officer Minwoo Seo. Put it through. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of an alien vessel. The beings standing there were tall and thin with pale blue skin and large eyes. They moved with the grace of people who had never known real hardship. Human ships, one of them said, his voice carrying wonder and fear. I am Fleet Commander Yellen of the Valerian Defense Corps. We did not expect anyone to answer our call. This is Admiral Hyun Park of the Earth Defense Corps. Park replied. We received your message. We're here to help. Earth? Yellen's large eyes widened. But Earth is listed as a Class 12 death world. Such worlds cannot support intelligent life. Park smiled grimly. That's what makes us good at this job, Commander. What's your tactical situation? 3 Korthak scout ships are approaching the 4th planet. Our weapons cannot penetrate their bioarmor. We've tried everything. Stand by. We'll handle the scouts. Park turned to his tactical officer. Major Choi, take your fighters and show our new friends what Deathworld engineering looks like. Yes, sir. The human fighter squadron launched from their carriers like angry wasps. 12 experimental craft, each one packed with weapons that violated several galactic treaties that Earth had never signed. The Korthak scouts were massive things, like twisted combinations of ship and living creature. Their hulls pulsed with organic patterns, and weapon ports opened like mouths along their sides. Captain Yoon Ha-yoon led the fighter attack, her ship diving toward the largest Korthak vessel. Target their bioelectrical systems, she ordered her squadron. Hit them with electromagnetic pulse weapons. The human fighters opened fire with weapons the Valari had never seen. Instead of energy beams or plasma bolts, they used focused electromagnetic bursts designed to disrupt biological nervous systems. The effect was immediate. The Korthak ships began to convulse, their biomechanical systems failing as their organic components went into shock. One scout ship tried to turn away, but human missiles tracked it down and delivered payloads of concentrated acid. The engagement lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, 3 Korthak scout ships drifted dead in space, their bioarmor dissolved and their organic systems fried. Targets neutralized, Yoon reported. No human casualties. On the Valerian command ship, Fleet Commander Yellen stared at his sensors in disbelief. How, he whispered. Those ships destroyed our entire patrol fleet. How did you kill them so quickly? Admiral Park's image appeared on Yellen's screen again. Commander, those weren't weapons of war. Those were pest control devices. We use similar technology to deal with insects on our homeworld. Insects? Small flying creatures that bite humans. We had to develop ways to kill them without damaging our environment. Yellen felt a chill run through his telepathic abilities. These humans had just destroyed Korthak warships using technology they normally use to kill bugs. Admiral, Yellen said carefully, what else can your people do? Park's smile was not comforting. Commander, you called for help dealing with a species that consumes worlds. We're from a world that tried to consume us for millions of years. We learned to fight back, and you won? We're here, aren't we? As the human fleet moved deeper into Valerian space, reports began coming in from across the galaxy. The message was spreading through trader networks and diplomatic channels. Earth's Deathworlders had answered the call, and they were very, very good at killing things. The moon of Valaris Prime had been a peaceful research station just 1 week ago. Now it looked like something from a nightmare. Major Subin Choi stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed human fortress and watched her engineers work. They had turned the small moon into a military base that defied everything the Valari thought they knew about construction. The defensive grid is online, reported Lieutenant Taehyun Bae, checking his datapad. Automated turrets every 50 meters, underground bunker systems and missile silos disguised as research buildings. Subin nodded. The Valari had offered them this moon as a temporary base. They probably expected humans to build some simple shelters and communication arrays. Instead, the humans had carved the entire moon into a weapon. What about the prisoners? She asked. Dr. Nam is still working on them in Lab 7. The prisoners were 3 captured Korthak specimens that human forces had taken during their scout ship raids. Dr. Jinwoo, Nam had been studying them for days, trying to understand how the enemy's hive mind worked. In the underground laboratory, Dr. Nam watched the Korthak through reinforced glass. They were horrifying creatures, part insect, part machine, with biomechanical armor grafted directly to their flesh. But what made them truly dangerous was their mental connection to the larger swarm. Play the frequency again, Nam told his assistant. Dr. Yoon-ha-yoon, she activated a device that sent specific sound waves into the containment chamber. Immediately, all 3 Korthak began screaming and clawing at their heads. Their biomechanical implants sparked and smoked. Fascinating, Nam muttered, making notes. Their hive mind communication uses bioelectrical signals. Disrupt the frequency and you cause severe neural feedback. Can we weaponize it? Yuna asked, already working on it, but we need to test it on a larger scale. Above ground, the human forces were preparing for that larger scale test. Intelligence reports showed a massive Korthak assault force approaching Valaris Prime. The enemy had decided to make a direct attack on the Valerian homeworld. Admiral Hyun Park stood in the command center with Fleet Commander Yellen, studying the tactical displays. The approaching Korthak force was enormous. Hundreds of bioships, some the size of small cities. Our orbital defenses cannot stop them, Yellen said, his mental voice trembling with fear. They will reach the planet in 6 hours. Good, Park replied calmly. Good? Yellen stared at the human admiral. How is this good? Commander, your people have been fighting a defensive war. Running away, evacuating, trying to minimize damage. That's not how humans fight. Park pointed to the display showing Valaris Prime below them. We've spent the past week turning your beautiful planet into a trap. Every city, every building, every garden has been modified for warfare. Yellen felt sick. You've weaponized our homeworld? We've prepared it. There's a difference. The difference became clear when the first Korthak ships entered the planet's atmosphere. Sergeant Naeon-O watched from her hidden position in what used to be the capital city's main plaza. The beautiful white stone buildings still looked peaceful, but now they hid weapon systems that could level mountains. Korthak landing craft approaching Sector 7. Came the voice of Corporal Minwoo Seo through her communicator. 30 seconds to contact. Naeon checked her equipment one more time. Her heavy weapons platform was disguised as a decorative fountain, complete with holographic water effects. The Valari had thought it was beautiful. The Korthak were about to learn what it really was. The first Korthak troops hit the ground running. They were larger than the specimens in the lab, standing 3 meters tall with forearms ending in blade-like claws. Their bio-armor pulsed with organic patterns, and they moved with the coordination of a perfect hive mind. They charged across the plaza, heading for what their sensors told them was the government building. They never saw the weapons rising from the decorative fountains. Naeon opened fire with a weapon that technically didn't exist. Earth's military had been banned from testing certain munitions on their homeworld, due to environmental concerns. But there were no such restrictions in alien space. The plasma storm that erupted from her hidden position turned the plaza into hell. But this wasn't random destruction. Every shot was precisely calculated to drive the Korthak toward specific areas where more traps waited. Captain Yoon coordinated the battle from her command post in what appeared to be a school building. All units begin Phase 2. Drive them toward the convergence points. Across the city, human soldiers revealed themselves and began a carefully choreographed retreat. They fired just enough to hurt the Korthak, then fell back to prepared positions. To the enemy, it looked like the humans were being overwhelmed. The Korthak followed eagerly, their hive mind convinced they were winning. They poured into the city streets, chasing what they thought were fleeing defenders. They were actually being herded like animals. Lieutenant Taehyun Bae crouched in the ruins of what had been a beautiful garden. Around him, Valerian crystal flowers still glowed with soft light, but now they served a different purpose. Each crystal had been modified to amplify the neural disruption frequency that Dr. Nam had discovered. All crystals are synchronized, he reported, ready to activate on your signal. The signal came when the majority of the Korthak ground force had been driven into the city center. Every modified crystal flower in the capital began resonating at the exact frequency that caused neural feedback in Korthak bioimplants. The effect was immediate and horrifying. Thousands of Korthak warriors suddenly stopped moving and began screaming. Their biomechanical implants overloaded, sending electrical feedback through their nervous systems. Some collapsed. Others began attacking each other as their hive-mind connection shattered. But the humans weren't. Finished? Activate the building charges, ordered Major Subin, Choi from her command position. Every major building in the capital had been secretly modified with explosive charges during the past week. Not to destroy the buildings, but to reconfigure them. In seconds, beautiful Valerian architecture transformed into a maze of killing corridors and weapon platforms. The peaceful city became a three-dimensional battlefield, where every surface could hide a gun, every doorway could be a trap, and every beautiful garden could turn deadly. The Korthak found themselves fighting not just human soldiers, but the city itself. Streets shifted to channel them into crossfire zones. Buildings reconfigured to create sniper nests and artillery positions. Even the air became weaponized as atmospheric processors began releasing chemicals that interfered with Korthak biological systems. From orbit, Fleet Commander Yellen watched the battle with growing horror. The humans weren't just winning. They were systematically dismantling an enemy force that had conquered dozens of worlds. How? He whispered to Admiral Park. How did you prepare all this in just 1 week? Park's expression was grim. Commander, humans have been preparing for warfare our entire evolutionary history. Every human city is planned with defense in mind. Every human building can be turned into a fortress. Every human technology can be weaponized. But the precision, the coordination, we've been fighting our own planet for millions of years. Weather, earthquakes, volcanoes, predators, diseases. Everything on Earth tries to kill us, so we learned to turn everything into a weapon. On the surface, Corporal Minwoo Seo moved through the transformed city like a ghost. As a combat medic, his job was to save human lives while ending Korthak ones. The dual nature of his work would have seemed contradictory to most species. To humans, it was perfectly natural. He found a wounded Marine in what had been a school playground. The soldier had taken Korthak claw wounds to his chest, but he was still fighting from behind the cover of what appeared to be children's playground equipment. Hold still, Minwoo told him, pulling out medical supplies. While treating the wounds, he also set proximity mines around their position. By the time he finished bandaging the Marine, their location had become a death trap for any Korthak that approached. Can you move? Minwoo asked. Yes, sir. Good. Fall back to Rally Point 3, I'll cover you. As the Marine retreated, Minwoo activated a device that made the playground equipment rise from the ground and transform into an automated defense turret. The Valerian children who had played here would never recognize their peaceful playground as the weapon it had become. The battle lasted 14 hours. When it ended, the Korthak assault force had been completely destroyed. Not a single bioship escaped the planet's atmosphere. The human casualties were minimal. Elder Solon stood in his command chamber, looking at reports from the battle. The numbers were impossible to believe. 5,000 human soldiers had defeated a Korthak force of over 50,000. Elder, said Commander Yellen through their mental link, I think we need to reconsider our understanding of these humans. What do you mean? They didn't save us from the Korthak. They saved the Korthak from what they were about to face. Solon felt a chill through his telepathic abilities. Explain. Elder, these humans have been fighting their own world since they evolved. They've turned warfare into an art form. They've made peace with violence in ways we cannot understand. Are they our saviors or our new masters? I don't think they know yet either. The warning came at dawn on the third day after the battle. Deep space sensors detected something that made even the humans pause. The main Korthak swarm was coming, and it was bringing weapons that could crack planets. Admiral Hyun Park stood in the command center watching the long-range scans with growing concern. The approaching bioships were enormous beyond imagination. Some were the size of small moons, their organic hulls pulsing with dark energy. "Sir, we're detecting massive gravitational distortions around the largest vessels," reported Lieutenant Taehyun Bae. "They appear to be planet-killer weapons." "How long until they arrive?" Park asked. 18 hours, sir." Fleet Commander Yellen joined them at the tactical display, his pale blue skin even more pale than usual. "Admiral, those are Devourer-class bioships. They don't just attack planets. They consume them completely." "We've seen the reports from your other worlds," Park replied, "but they've never faced organized resistance before." "Organized resistance?" Yellen's large eyes widened. "Admiral, those ships can eat an entire planet. What kind of resistance can stop that?" Park's smile was cold. "The kind that comes from a species that refused to let their own planet kill them." Preparations began immediately. The human fleet moved into attack formation, while engineering teams worked frantically to modify their weapons. Colonel Junho Kang gathered his space marines in the main briefing room of the assault carrier EDS Warhammer. "Listen up, Marines," Junho called to his troops. "We're about to attempt something that has never been done before. We're going to board enemy bioships the size of cities and fight them from the inside." The Marines listened with the calm attention of professional soldiers. These were men and women who had trained for combat in every environment imaginable. Spaceporting actions were just another day at work. "Intel suggests these bioships are living organisms," Junho continued. "That means they have biological systems we can exploit. Nervous systems, circulatory systems, organs that keep them alive." Sergeant Heun Jang raised her hand. "Sir, what about environmental hazards inside these things? Expect toxic atmospheres, extreme temperatures, and acidic conditions that would melt most species. That's why we're using the new environmental suits." The environmental suits were another piece of experimental human technology. Designed to keep soldiers alive in the most hostile conditions imaginable, they could function in vacuum, underwater, in acid baths, or in temperatures that would vaporize most materials. They had been tested in the volcanic vents of Earth's ocean floors. Fighting inside alien bioships would be easy by comparison. Major Sunmi Park worked in the intelligence section, analyzing everything they knew about Korthak bioships. Her team had been studying the data from captured specimens and the wreckage of destroyed scout ships. "The key is understanding their biology," she explained to her analysts. "These aren't ships with crews. They're single organisms that happen to be ship-sized." "What does that mean for our boarding teams?" asked her assistant. "It means we're not invading a ship. We're performing surgery on a living creature, and if we cut the right arteries, we can make it bleed to death." Dr. Wu Jinan supervised the modification of human weapons for the coming battle. In his laboratory aboard the science vessel EDS Darwin, he worked with materials that would horrify most civilized species. "The bioships heal damage automatically," he explained to his team. "Normal weapons just get absorbed and repaired. But we're not using normal weapons." He held up a device that looked like a simple grenade. "This contains a modified Earth virus, completely harmless to humans but deadly to Korthak biosystems. When it spreads through their organic networks, it causes massive system failures." "Biological warfare?" asked his assistant, Dr. Yuna Lim. "Biological medicine. We're curing these bioships of their ability to stay alive." The Korthak swarm arrived exactly on schedule. The massive bioships dropped out of hyperspace like nightmare creatures from the deepest ocean. The largest one was over 50 kilometers long, its surface covered with weapon ports that opened like hungry mouths. "My God," whispered Fleet Commander Yellen as he watched the tactical display. "How can anything that large be alive?" "Evolution," Admiral Park replied. "Given enough time and the right pressures, life can adapt to any size. These things probably started as small parasites and grew larger as they consumed more worlds. How do we fight them?" "We don't fight them. We dissect them." The battle began with the Korthak bioships trying to use their planet-killer weapons on Valaris Prime. Massive biocannons charged with enough energy to crack continental plates. But the weapons never fired. Pilot Sung-ho Ryu led the first wave of human fighters directly into the bioship's weapon ports. His squadron carried specialized torpedoes designed not to explode, but to inject viruses directly into the bioship's nervous systems. Target the neural clusters, Sung-ho ordered his pilots. Make them feel pain. The fighters dove into openings that would have been weapon ports on normal ships. Inside the bioships, they found corridors of living flesh and walls that pulsed with alien heartbeats. The fighters released their viral payloads and immediately retreated. The effect was immediate. The massive bioships began convulsing, their planet-killer weapons powering down as biological systems went into shock. Phase 2, ordered Admiral Park. Begin boarding. Operations. Colonel Junho Kang led the first boarding assault personally. His dropship punched through the hull of the largest bioship like a bullet through skin. The Marines deployed in the living corridors of the alien vessel, their environmental suits protecting them from the toxic atmosphere. Jesus, muttered Corporal Minwoo Seo as he looked around. The walls were made of flesh and bone, pulsing with veins that carried glowing fluid. The floor felt spongy under their boots, and strange organic sounds echoed through the passages. Stay focused, Junho ordered. Remember, this thing is just a very large animal. We're here to perform surgery. The Marines moved through the bioship like antibodies attacking an infection. They planted viral bombs at strategic points, targeting what appeared to be major organs. Engineer Han Jang used shaped charges to sever what looked like arterial connections. Sir, this passage leads to what might be the brain, reported Sergeant Naeon Oh, consulting her scanner. Massive neural activity detected ahead. Take point, Junho ordered. Let's introduce ourselves to the pilot. They found the bioship's control center deep in its core. It wasn't a bridge with controls and displays. It was a vast chamber filled with neural tissue that pulsed with electrical activity. In the center, connected by thousands of biological cables, was a creature that might once have been Korthak, but had grown into something much larger. That's the ship's brain, Junho realized. The whole bioship is controlled by that thing. What do we do with it? Asked Naeon. We give it a lobotomy. The specialized charges that Engineer Heian placed around the neural chamber were designed specifically for this moment. When they detonated, they didn't destroy the brain. They severed its connections to the rest of the bioship, leaving the massive creature alive but unable to control its own body. The 50-kilometer bioship began to drift helplessly, its biological systems failing as its brain lost contact with its body. Across the battle zone, similar operations were taking place. Human Marines fought through the living corridors of bioships, while pilots delivered viral payloads that turned the creature's own immune systems against them. Major Sunmi Park coordinated the intelligence gathering from her command post. We're seeing massive system failures across all targeted bioships, she reported. The viral weapons are exceeding expectations. Any human casualties? Asked Admiral Park. Surprisingly light, sir. These bioships are designed to fight other spaceships, not to deal with internal parasites. That's what we are to them. Parasites. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 17 Korthak bioships drifted dead in space. The few surviving vessels fled back into hyperspace, carrying news of something the Korthak had never encountered before. An enemy that was better at biological warfare than they were. Dr. Wu Jin-an stood in the medical bay of the EDS Darwin, examining tissue samples from the destroyed bioships. Fascinating, he muttered. These creatures have been modifying themselves for biological warfare for thousands of years. But they never encountered a species that had been doing it longer. How much longer? Asked Dr. Yuna Lim. Millions of years. Every virus, every bacteria, every parasite on Earth has been trying to kill humans since we evolved. We learned to fight biological warfare from the planet that invented it. Elder Solon received the battle reports in his private chambers. The numbers were staggering. The humans had destroyed the largest Korthak fleet ever assembled. Bioships that had consumed dozens of worlds now floated dead in space, but the victory came with disturbing realizations. Elder, Commander Yellen said through their mental link, I've been analyzing the human combat methods. They don't just use weapons, they turn everything into a weapon. Their own biology, their environment, even their enemy's strengths. What concerns you, Commander? These humans have been fighting a war for survival their entire evolutionary history. They've never known true peace. They've never had a chance to become civilized in the way we understand civilization. Are you saying they're monsters? The surviving Korthak bioships fled toward the edge of known space, trailing biological fluids and dying tissue. Fleet Admiral Borum Shin watched them disappear into hyperspace from the bridge of the EDS Nemesis, the largest warship humanity had ever built. Admiral, the Volari are requesting we stand down and begin relief operations and reported communications. Officer Jisoo Kim. They consider the threat ended. Shin studied the tactical display showing the retreating enemy signals. The threat isn't ended. It's just running home to regroup, sir. Signal all ships. We're pursuing the Korthak to their source. This ends where it started. The decision shocked the Valerian leadership. Elder Solon called an emergency meeting with Admiral Hyun Park, his mental voice carrying confusion and fear. Admiral, you have already saved us. The Korthak are fleeing. Why pursue them further? Park's expression was grim. Elder, these creatures have consumed how many worlds? Dozens? Hundreds? If we let them retreat and rebuild, they'll come back stronger. But the cost? Pursuing them across the galaxy. The cost of not pursuing them is higher. Every species they've destroyed, every world they've consumed. That stops now. General Kyungmin Lee coordinated the pursuit fleet from his command ship. 60 human vessels carrying the full might of Earth's military, prepared to follow the Korthak back to their homeworld. It would be the longest military operation in human history. All ships report ready for extended operations, Lee announced to his staff. Medical supplies, ammunition, and food stores are at maximum capacity. What about the experimental weapons? Asked his aide, Captain Jisoo Kim. Dr. An's Biological Warfare Division has developed something new. He calls it the Individualization Protocol. What does it do? It forces hive mind species to experience individual consciousness. According to his tests, it should be psychologically devastating. Dr. Woo Jin-an worked in his expanded laboratory aboard the science vessel EDS Prometheus. Around him, his team prepared the most complex biological weapon ever created. It wasn't designed to kill. It was designed to do something much worse. The Korthak have existed as a hive mind for thousands of years, he explained to his research team. They have no concept of individual thought, individual fear, or individual death. They experience everything collectively. And this weapon changes that? Asked Dr. Yuna Lim. This weapon forces each Korthak to become a separate individual. Imagine suddenly being alone in your own mind after thousands of years of shared consciousness. The psychological trauma would be beyond measurement. Is that ethical? An paused in his work. They consume entire civilizations. They turn living worlds into dead space. I'm not sure ethics apply here. The pursuit took the human fleet through 3 star systems that showed the evidence of Korthak consumption. Dead planets stripped down to their cores, asteroid fields that had once been inhabited worlds. Space itself seemed scarred by the passage of the swarm. Jesus, whispered pilot Seung-ho Ryu as his fighter squadron scouted the ruins of what had been the Zentari trading empire. They didn't just kill these people. They erased them completely. Captain Yoon Ha-yoon led her psychological warfare specialists in analyzing the destruction patterns. It's systematic, she reported. They consume everything organic first, then the minerals, then the planetary core. Nothing is wasted. How many worlds? Asked Admiral Shin. Based on the debris patterns, at least 40 systems completely consumed, possibly more. The number hit the human commanders like a physical blow. 40 star systems, billions of lives. Entire civilizations reduced to empty space. Sir, said Major Sunmi Park, the fleet is requesting permission to increase speed. The crews want to reach the Korthak homeworld. Granted, maximum pursuit speed. The human fleet found the Korthak homeworld in a system so remote that no other species had ever mapped it. The planet itself was an abomination. Instead of continents and oceans, it was covered with a single massive organism that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. Sensors indicate the entire planet is alive, reported Lieutenant Taehyun Bae. It's not a world with life on it. It's a living world. Admiral Shin studied the scans with growing understanding. It's not their homeworld. It's their mother. The truth was horrifying. The Korthak hadn't evolved on this planet. They had been created by it. The living world was a massive organism that reproduced by sending swarms of bioships across the galaxy to gather resources. Every consumed world fed back to this central creature, making it larger and more powerful. Sir, detecting massive defensive networks around the planet, reported the tactical officer. Bioships numbering in the thousands. All ships prepare for final assault, Shin ordered. This is where we end the Korthak swarm forever. The battle for the living world was unlike anything in recorded history. Human ships fought through waves of biovessels, while massive planetary organisms tried to drag them down to the surface. The very space around the planet seemed alive, reaching out with tendrils of biological matter to capture attackers. Colonel Junho Kang led the final ground assault, taking his Marines directly to the planet's surface. They landed in what appeared to be a vast organic city, with buildings made of living tissue and streets that pulsed like arteries. "This whole planet is one big brain," he reported as his teams moved deeper into the organic landscape. "We're walking through the thoughts of something the size of a world." The Marines fought through living corridors filled with Korthak defenders. But these weren't the organized swarm troops they had faced before. These creatures moved with desperate individual fear. The planet brain's panic was affecting its children. "Deploy the individualization protocol," ordered Dr. An from his orbital position. "All delivery systems full release." The weapon spread through the planet's organic networks like a virus. But instead of causing physical damage, it attacked the very foundation of Korthak existence. The shared consciousness that had defined their species for millennia began to fracture. On the planet's surface, Colonel Junho watched in amazement as Korthak warriors suddenly stopped fighting and began screaming. They clutched their heads as individual thoughts flooded minds that had never experienced privacy before. "They're experiencing individual consciousness for the first time," reported Dr. An. "Each one is suddenly alone in their own mind." The UR effect spread across the entire planet. Millions of Korthak creatures, from the smallest drones to the massive bioship controllers, found themselves cut off from the collective consciousness that had been their entire reality. Some went mad immediately. Others collapsed from the shock of being alone with their own thoughts. Many simply stood motionless, unable to process the experience of individual existence. "Sir," reported Sergeant Heiyun Jang, "the planetary defenses have stopped firing. Everything has just stopped." The living world itself began to convulse as its children's collective consciousness collapsed. The massive organism that had spawned the Korthak swarm for thousands of years found itself suddenly alone, cut off from the minds that had been its extended nervous system. "The planet brain is dying," observed Dr. Wu Jinan. "Without the shared consciousness network, it can't maintain its biological functions." Captain Jisoo Kim coordinated the evacuation of human forces as the living world began to tear itself apart. The massive organism that had threatened the entire galaxy was experiencing the most fundamental terror of all conscious beings, the fear of dying alone. The end came not with explosions or warfare, but with a kind of cosmic sadness. The living world that had been the source of the Korthak swarm simply gave up, its biological systems shutting down as it faced the reality of individual mortality. When it was over, Admiral Hyun Park stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the dead world drift in space. Around him, scattered groups of former Korthak drones tried to build something that might be called a civilization. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Valerian Commonwealth," reported his communications officer. Elder Solin's image appeared on the main screen. "Admiral, the galaxy is calling you heroes. You have ended the greatest threat we have ever known." "Have we?" Park replied. "We've shown the galaxy that humans can destroy anything, including species that seemed unstoppable. Some might consider that a different kind of threat. What will you do now? Will you return to Earth?" Park looked at the tactical display showing human ships scattered across 3 star systems. His forces controlled more space than any single species in known history. They had weapons that could destroy civilizations and the will to use them. "That's the question, isn't it, Elder? We came when you called for help. We've eliminated your enemy, but we've also shown the galaxy something about human nature that maybe it wasn't ready to see. Which is, we're very good at solving problems through violence. Maybe too good." The transmission ended, leaving Park alone with his thoughts. Around him, his officers waited for orders. They could return to Earth as heroes. They could establish a human empire across the galaxy. They could become the protectors of peaceful species everywhere. Or they could become something else entirely. "Sir," asked Captain Jisoo Kim, "what are your orders?" Park studied the star charts showing the vast territory they now controlled. Somewhere out there, Other species were watching and wondering what these Deathworld humans would do next.